Are you looking to give your child a well-rounded education while also ensuring positive socialization opportunities and their ability to succeed in life? Consider joining a classical conversations community and homeschooling alongside local families. Led by a trained licensed director, families learn through classical conversations' proven Christ-centered curriculum together in a community. With locations in all 50 states and over 50 countries, there's bound to be a community near you. To find your community today, visit classicalconversations.com/compared to who. That's classicalconversations.com/compared to who. Hey friend, thanks for listening to the Compared to Who show. I'm Heather Creekmore, your host, and today we're talking about aging. Oh my, I didn't know Martha Stewart was going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated when I recorded the show with my guest, Ruth Harper, and I'll tell you more about her in just a second. But aging is an interesting thing in our culture, right? We're all about anti-aging, and then Sports Illustrated puts Martha Stewart on the cover, so maybe things are changing. I don't know. But what I do know personally is that aging is harder than I ever expected it to be. Can you feel me? Do you relate? Oh, it's shocking, in fact. And today, my guest, Ruth Harper, is going to tell her story. She's a registered dietitian. She does nutrition therapy and healing for women with eating disorders and coaching clients around intuitive eating. She does a lot of things. She works with a lot of women who are struggling in the perimenopause, menopause years. Another interesting aspect to Ruth's story is that she's a former Division I collegiate athlete in track and cross country. So she's experienced body image issues from that perspective as well. And I know some of you can relate to the pressure around body in collegiate sports. And I invited Ruth on today to first tell her story and talk about what she does. But in part 2 of this episode, Ruth is going to coach me a little bit around aging. I'm going to talk to her about some of the things that I'm facing, some of the things that some of my clients have told me they're facing, and she's going to give us a little coaching on that. So if this is you, if you relate to all this aging stuff, then I hope you listen to that episode too. I think you're going to get a lot out of today's episode, no matter how old you are. So I'm glad you're here. Hey, I want to draw your attention to one thing. I am offering a special rate, like it will never be this cheap again, a special rate on coaching for 6 weeks this summer only. You can grab 1 spot, you can grab 2 spots, you can grab up to 5 spots this summer at a very reduced rate. A lot of things going on, a lot of things coming up this fall with my new course that's coming out, my new book that's coming out. So in this awkward transition time for me, I want to invite some of you who've thought about coaching to just grab a session or 2 this summer. Let's talk. Let's just see if it'll help you get on a new path. I would love to talk to you and walk with you on a journey to body image freedom. So check that out on my website, improvebodyimage.com, or just go to comparedtowho.me and look for the coaching tab. Either place, and you'll find out all about that, how to book, how to grab your time. There's a limited number of spots available. So even though it's only the beginning of June right now, grab your spot for later June or July now, because they will go fast. And I can't wait to work with you. Let's go. Welcome to Compared to Who, the podcast to help you make peace with your body so you can savor God's rest and feel His love. If you're tired of fighting body image the world's way, Compared to Who is the show for you. You've likely heard lots of talk about loving your body, but my goal is different. Striving to fall in love with stretch marks and cellulite is a little silly to me. Instead, I want to encourage you and remind you with the truth of Scripture that you are seen, you are known, and you are loved no matter what your size or shape. Here, the pressure is off. If you're looking for real talk, biblical encouragement, and regular reminders that God loves you and you're not alone, you've come to the right place. I hope you enjoy today's show, and hey, tell a friend about it. Hey, Ruth Harper, thanks so much for being on the Compared to Who show today.
Thanks for having me, Heather. I'm so happy to be here.
Ruth, I'm just excited that we're going to talk about all things aging today. Whew, aging's a real struggle for a lot of us. And yet it's part of life, right? I mean, there's no other option, right?
Well, there are other options, but yes.
No other viable option.
But, right.
But yeah, so I'd love to just get started. Will you just tell us you do a lot of work with women around eating disorders, disordered eating? Would you just kind of tell us your story? A lot of times those of us who work in this have a story of struggling with this. Will you share yours with us today?
I'd be happy to. Thanks for asking, Heather. Yeah, so I grew up in a as a body conscious teen, and I was a runner. I ran track and cross country, and as I think about that experience, and in hindsight, like I was even embarrassed to have a body at all, never mind to have a body running around a track in skimpy clothing.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I had this strong perfectionist inside saying, you need to look more presentable on the track like all the other tiny little girls running around, because I wasn't one of those tiny little girls. I wasn't in a large body, but I felt large in my body. And I wanted to figure out how to feel better. And so I did, I tried. But then so I did this, try to eat less and then run as much as possible. And I was so dang hungry that I couldn't, the eating just took over. And I had to eat and eat because I was so hungry. And then I felt devastated that I couldn't control the eating, that I
Yeah.
needed to run more. And it was this cycle of figuring out what in the world is wrong with me and why can I not control this body
Mm,
and this eating. And so, lo and behold, I thought, I'll decide to study nutrition. Let's learn about it so that I can control it for myself. And so, sorry, I didn't learn nutrition to help people. I was very selfish.
I don't think you're alone in that at all.
I'm sure I'm not, but it feels yucky. I thought I could figure it out if I knew more about it. And boy, was I wrong. I learned through studying nutrition, the body is crazy smart and amazing, and that the body doesn't require exactness as much as we think that
Mm,
it should, or people say we should, but it didn't even help to know that. Still couldn't control it no matter what I knew. And I was angry and upset and still stuck in this cycle of over exercising and trying to restrict and feeling like a failure all the time, even with the knowledge. And oh, that's like a double whammy, right?
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
not only did I have this negative view of my body and this embarrassment to have a body, now I was a dietitian
Mm,
in this body. And boy, that was more pressure than I wanted. Like now I have to keep my body looking presentable because people expect me to,
mm,
because now I have all the knowledge. And if I'm going to think I have a voice that matters, I better keep this body looking the way people think it should look.
yeah.
It's pretty heavy.
Yeah. I love that word exactness.
Mm.
That's an interesting word, I think, especially as we think about aging, right? Because there is this belief, maybe promulgated by Instagram ads, right? That there's a formula. If you just figure out the exact formula, then you can solve all your body problems. But then carrying that one step forward, you can solve all your aging problems. So
Mm.
I love how you pointed out that quest for exactness. That's such a good word. So, Ruth, did you figure it all out? Have
Oh,
you
well,
mastered this all?
well, we'll just tell the rest of the story. Yeah. So I took time off from working after I worked for a few years. I had kids and wanted to raise them at home. And in that time, I sort of was separated from this world of nutrition and everything. I didn't even want to tell anybody I was a dietitian.
Uh-huh.
And I just was diving right into God's word and learning and growing spiritually. And it was an amazing time. And I knew after a while that there was something that didn't line up inside of me with my relationship with food and my body and my relationship with God. It just didn't mesh. There were two separate worlds. I almost had this dual
Mm,
personality going
yeah,
on,
yeah.
and it was uncomfortable. And I didn't have the power to do anything about it. It was really big and strong inside. And so now I had a lot of shame and guilt that I had this going on. And wow, I had to act. like the spiritual Bible study leader on one
Mm,
hand, and then try to figure out how to keep my body right on the other
mm,
hand. Um, and then one year we took a vacation in the summer to the Smoky Mountains, and I decided it would be a really fun exercise to run down the mountain and back up again. And so running down the mountain that day, I hurt my knee because it just all that pounding going down, the gravity wasn't
yeah.
great for it. And I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't even ride a bike. I couldn't take a walk. I had to actually just sit and be, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And thank the Lord, like I had been doing all this work of connecting with him and growing spiritually, that when I felt that terror inside, it was really bigger than anything I'd ever felt before.
Mm,
And I knew that I needed to go to him. And I did. And honestly, I have to say that was probably the first time I'd ever honestly gone to God with a problem that I didn't know what to do with, because I
yeah.
was always pretty resourceful. I could figure things out.
Yeah.
Right.
I get
And
that.
so I went to him and I just said, Lord, what am I going to do? And he came so close to me with this peace
Mm,
that just didn't make any sense to me. And I got the sense that if I gained weight, it was going to be okay, because I
mm,
had this relationship with God that was bigger and more important than a body that felt safe to me.
mm,
And he calmed me in that.
mm,
And it's that peace that I was able to have and keep, that then it just brought down that urge and that fear around eating, that I could connect with my body like I'd never done before. And I
mm,
could sense like when I needed to eat and how much and even what was interesting. And it wasn't scary at all. In
mm.
fact, it was more peaceful than I had ever experienced anything ever. And I was just flabbergasted that this
Yeah.
could be my reality. And it was God's. He gave it to me.
Ruth, this is so good. Let's talk more about it right after this break.
That's then how I started navigating my relationship with food and my body, was this connectedness that was so unlike anything I had experienced before. And it just wasn't scary anymore. Then fast forward many years when my kids were old enough to not need me much at all.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, maybe I should get a job. And I decided that I didn't want to get a real job. I decided to open up a private practice, which, fun facts, it is a real job. And I wanted to figure out what to do in that private practice. And I learned about intuitive eating. And I was just in awe of God for how he created this and he taught it to me. And then he set me up to be able to see that that's a real area of science and
Yeah.
practice where people are learning to connect with their bodies, to be able to eat intuitively and have peace with food and body. And that's exactly what he walked me through years prior.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to point out the words you used, terror that you felt when you were injured. And I know everyone listening today, like, well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but I would say most people listening today do not think that's the wrong word, right? That is so relatable. It is terrifying to think about your body changing, or the flip side of that, think about the reality that your body may never change, right? And so I love how you point out the truth that it wasn't really about your body. It was about the Lord ministering to you in that. And that's where the peace came from. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, aging. So, did you find any extra complications or unexpected complications? Like, did any of the things that you thought you kind of worked through resurface as you started entering the perimenopause years, the
Mm.
40s, 50s?
Right, that's a good question. Yes, for sure. And I'm so grateful for the work that I did prior, because if I hadn't have done that, I would have been in the same place. Uh, and so just if I could prelim a little bit of that, I
Sure.
had something happened just prior to the menopause transition for me in my life that threw my emotional health for a loop. And it brought to light that I was not that emotionally regulated at all. I had a lot of internal strategies going on to try to act like I was okay. And I really believed I was okay. And this one thing happened that it just showed me that I was not as okay as I thought.
Mm.
And it was pretty heavy and I was falling apart, to be honest. And I
Yeah.
decided to enter into some work in therapy. And I realized that I had been disconnected with my emotions my whole life. I didn't know. I thought I was strong because I didn't have so many emotions.
Yeah, I hear that.
I'm like, I'm a great Christian. I'm not tossed to and fro with my emotions.
I
Right.
hear you. I get it.
I can just do the right things and I can look like I'm great all the time. But I so was not great. And um, and then it's so interesting. Years ago, when this was going on, God brought me connected to a dietitian who you've had on your podcast, Tracy Brown, who's my friend now. And we did some work together, and she taught me about trauma-informed work and
Yeah.
just understanding the nervous system and understanding how that relates to the way we connect in our bodies with our emotions and how that relates to food and all these things. And it was just amazing because not only because of my practice and how it affected the way I related to my clients, but I was experiencing in myself firsthand right then that connecting with my body through this emotional connection was
Mm.
amazingly
Yeah.
important.
Wow.
And and then so I'm in this process of learning about all this and then I enter into the menopause transition, right?
Uh-huh. That's awesome. Good
And
timing.
so well, maybe. I don't know. It was a lot. And so, if you can imagine, I'm in this emotional awakening, and then my hormones start changing like crazy. And I am just overwhelmed with emotion. And my body is also changing. And on top of that, I had major ankle surgery, which I was laid up for months and months and
Mm.
months.
Wow.
And so all of this just came together at the same time. And so I was dealing with emotions, I was dealing with hot flashes. And this is a very fun fact. When I had stitches in my ankle and I came home from the a hospital, hot flashes came upon me. Like I had never had hot flashes
Uh-huh.
before. And it was like my body said, no, thank you. I hate stitches. I'm going to
Uh-huh.
flash you constantly. And it did. And
Wow.
then when the stitches were removed, the hot flashes settled back down again until later. But anyway,
Interesting.
isn't that fascinating?
That's really
Um,
interesting.
mhm. Yeah. So anyway, I was going through all this, and then so I was sedentary again. And so I'm
Mm.
gaining weight related to being sedentary and related to menopause. And I had to sit with the distress of, wow, my body's really changing here. And it was a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
to feel. And I had to do a lot of work with the Lord and in my own emotional state to be able to ground myself and offer myself compassion for what I was experiencing and seek the Lord for what is true and how I can still know who I am in the midst of all of that upheaval.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love how you said it was a lot to feel. Right. That's really the key, isn't it? We'd rather not feel it. Like just make it go
Yeah.
away. I don't want to feel it.
Well, Ruth, I'm so excited that you're going to come back and be with us next time. We're going to do some coaching. I think it'll be super fun to hear how you guide me through these aging issues. So thanks for being here today. And thank you for listening. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. And the Compared To Show is a proud part of the Life Audio network of podcasts. Hey, check out lifeaudio.com for great Christian podcast on just about every topic you can think of. Go check it out.